Well, time to bring in our political strategist this Monday afternoon. Grahame Morris here with me in the Canberra studio. Bruce Hawker in the Sky News Centre. A lot to talk about. I want to start with Federation. Bruce, you've worked in state and federal government in leaders' offices, and of course it was Kevin Rudd who said he'd end the blame game. There's a bit of deja vu with all of this. Tony Abbott does seem to be looking at the very outset for bipartisanship, collegiality on all of this before he tackles some of the questions around the GST and the rest of it. What chance do you give him of doing what many have tried and failed, and that is fixing up the Federation?
Yeah, well, good luck, Tony. It's been a problem since 1901, and I think it'll continue to be so. I think in everything that's been happening in the last few months, trying to shift the cost of government onto the states and then taking away all their funding has been intended to do one thing, and that's to bring us to a point where the states demand a higher GST. And I suspect that that's what a lot of this is all about. The states saying, look, we can't continue to function properly unless the GST is increased. They won't care because it's essentially a federally dictated tax, even though there is an argument that they need to be in agreement about it. But of course, the federal government would then take a lot of the stick over increasing the GST or increasing the breadth of it.
And do you think there'd be an appetite for actually doing that? I know it's easy to run the GST scare campaign, but any expert on this agrees you can't just leave it stuck at 10%, not covering food and fresh food and various other things. Surely there is a strong argument for actually doing something about the GST.
Well, there's a strong argument for doing something about taxation, that's for sure. The trouble with GST is that it is a regressive tax. The pensioner gets charged exactly the same GST on a loaf of bread as a millionaire. So
you have compensation.
Yeah. So you do have to have some system in place which says we do need more tax, I believe, if we're going to have the lifestyle that we've grown accustomed to over the years, unless we can keep growing at a faster and faster rate. It's a question of how that tax is spread and what tax it is. I don't think it should necessarily be an increase in the GST at all, but I do think we need to have a very serious debate about taxation.
Grahame, it seems the Prime Minister and the Government are in a tricky position at the moment because they're hemmed in by the promise of no change to the GST, but clearly they want to look at this and there's a strong argument for doing so, but it's hard to advocate it.
Well, I had hoped that we could have a sensible debate. When we went to bed last night, Tony Abbott had said, look, let's have a sensible debate about federation and about tax. Then we wake up this morning and opposition leader Shorten says no increase in the GST. The Labor Premier in South Australia said, well, we're not going to redistribute the whole GST package. So it sort of gives you an indication how long sensible debates last in Australia nowadays, one sleep.
But it's a classic example, isn't it, of saying too much before an election. You know, we will not, never ever, all that stuff.
Look, when you think about it, it's a bit hard for the Prime Minister because he wants a federation debate, but he's also going to add inquiry, but he's also said he's going to have a tax inquiry, and somehow or other on day one they've been whacked together. Now you sort of understand why with the GST, but he has said that there'll be no changes in the sort of tax stuff until you take it to the people next time. Well, that's fine, but what is going to be hard is how do you have a federation debate without tax, given that you're still going to have a tax inquiry up the road? That's hard.
Now, Bruce.
The other thing, just as I was coming in, I was listening to GST. This is before we've even got to should we raise the GST. The states say they get the money. Companies say they want a company tax. The welfare groups say, no, we get the money. The housing industry wants stamp duty drop because of the GST. The anti-gambling lobby, they want some. And the high-income earners say they want a lower tax rate. And we haven't even got to families and taxpayers yet.
It's hard.
It's already been spent 7 times.
It's hard to keep everyone happy. That's the nature of a tax debate. Bruce, turning back the boats. Can you explain to me what the position is now for Labor?
Look, I don't know is the answer. I can only tell you what I've been reading in the paper as well. Look, I do think, though, that Labor's been pretty much on the back foot on this issue for a long time. Clearly, Kevin Rudd made some very significant changes when he introduced the PNG solution, but I think the real problem that Miles is flagging here is that, you know, these smugglers are there ready to jump on any sign that one of the parties might be going to change his position.
To his credit, he does seem to be acknowledging that yes, it might be a cruel thing that happened on the water, but it's pretty key to the result that we've seen, and he seems to be trying to drag the party towards that realisation. How does he do it? Because we saw today a number on the left coming out very promptly saying, no, we're never going to support this.
I think it's a very difficult debate to have inside the Labor Party because people are well motivated around the issue of refugees. The problem is, of course, that when boats were coming, people died on the seas. And I think that was the main concern that really generated a change in policy around PNG, for example, in the Labor Party. They don't care. No one seems to care how many people come by plane. It's just when they come in a boat, it really upsets and agitates a lot of people. So I think Miles has got to have that. People die, and Miles has got to make that point, and he's got to have that debate and say, look, you know, that doesn't mean we don't have a humane and proper policy around refugees, and in fact maybe Labor should seriously look at increasing the refugee intake, but doing it through offshore processing and so forth, and not allowing it to go this way.
So, Grahame, how do you see this?
Well, Richard Marles got himself boxed into a corner on asylum seekers, and he got sort of an uppercut from reality. He got a right hook from common sense, and he hit the floor. But he was right. You know, these lunatics from the left who were saying, Richard, correct your position and everything, they don't have to answer the bloody hard question, which is, and last year, mostly under Labor, 400 boats turned up in Australia. This year, under the coalition, 1 turned up. And the geniuses on the left of the Labor Party say, hey, let's go back to 400. Well, no wonder Richard Marles is so sort of uneasy about the opposition's position, because it's stupid.
As Bruce said, not an easy one to change within the Labor Party, but it does seem he's trying. Just quickly, Barnaby Joyce, embarrassing afternoon for him, do you think?
Well, I seem to remember I used to adjust the green, what they call the Greens, the parliamentary hansard. You know, if you said sort of over 1 million, you actually meant just under 1 million. I thought you could tweak that. But
maybe you're guilty.
Maybe I'm guilty.
Well, check what the rule is on that. But changing it wasn't just the over or nearly.
You couldn't reverse the whole argument.
Exactly. You couldn't reverse the argument of saying you do get the money or you don't get the money while you're waiting for your application. Yeah. Bruce?
It looks like Grahame and Barnaby have both been sprung today, mate. So, look, I think you can change the grammar, but you can't change the content effectively of the answer, and that's what this person's done. He's been caught out, and I think that's probably the end of the issue.
All right, Bruce, Hawker, Grahame Morris, that's the end of our panel for today. We'll catch you both next week. Thanks for that. Take a break, and then back with more. We're going to also look